Hi, students. We decided that we were going to be writing our personal narratives. And yesterday, you watched a short video about how to brainstorm what to write about when it comes to a personal narrative. We learned that a personal narrative is just one small story in your life. Something that can be exciting, something that was fun, maybe something kind of terrible too. And you can write about all of those different experiences, and that is called a personal narrative. Yesterday, you had to think of at least 6 different things that you could write about that you think other people might be interested in hearing about. The first one that I thought of was a trip to Winona that I went to with my family. Another one was a trip to Grand Marais that I took. Another one that I thought of was a story about my dog, Arlo. One of them was about my son Tommy's 10th birthday party. You can see he's kind of frowning right there, so maybe that might be an interesting story to write about because usually people are super excited on their birthdays. I thought about telling about when I ran the Twin Cities 10-mile race. Or I thought about when Sid, my nephew, was born. And I had other kids walk around and they were trying, and I let them put a check mark next to things that were the most interesting or they thought would be really interesting for me to write about. And a lot of them 3 of them had chosen my dog Arlo, and a couple one wanted the Sid, one wanted running the Twin Cities 10-mile race, and one was the trip to Winona with my family. Now, I've experienced all of these things, and I said I was going to do it on my dog Arlo, but I think I'm going to change it. And I think I'm going to write about the trip to Winona with my family because it's really fresh in my head. I just took this trip last weekend. So I think I'm going to have a lot of great things to write about. So sorry, guys. I know you were looking forward to hearing about my dog, Arlo. That'll be another story for another day. I'll save that for some time else. The next thing I want you guys to do is after you have picked your personal narrative that you want to write about, now it's time for us to create a flow map, just like we've been doing in our own, in reading too, and in literacy. We're learning how to draw flow maps. And I want us to think about 4 big ideas, 4 main things that we think that we'll talk about in each part of our story. So I'm going to draw, and you are going to get your notebook out too. So if you need to go get it, pause right here, go get a notebook and a pencil. Okay, I hope you're back. So on the top, I'm going to write the title of my story. Winona trip with my family. I don't know, that seems like a lot, and it seems a little clunky to say. So I'm going to change the title, and I think I'm going to call it My Trip to Winona. I'm going to change it again, and I think I'm going to change it to My Family Trip to Winona. Okay. Go ahead and write yours on there. Maybe you need to pause the video to think of what you want your title to be. Okay, I hope you're back. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to draw 4 squares, just like I did when I do my flow map in literacy. Here's 1. Put a little space in. Here's 2. They don't have to be perfect. 3, And in fact, this one's going to have to be really skinny anyway. Maybe some of you might decide you'll do 2 on one page, and then you can turn the page and do 2 on the next page. If that works better for you, no problem at all. I squished mine in. So you can pause right here while you finish drawing your 4 squares. All right, you're back. Now I'm going to title this, each one is going to have its own transition word, because when I tell a personal narrative, I need to tell that story in order that it happens. So I use a transition word that would help my reader understand what is happening next and what comes after that and what comes after that. And so my first transition word is, or the first word that I usually use, is the word first. It's a good one to use because it helps keep our brains ready to know what happened first. Go to the beginning of the story. Then I think about what happens next. Another transition word that I might use in my next paragraph is after that. And my last transition word that I would use would have to show that it's the ending. I'm going to use the word finally. I could also use words like in the end or now that it's over. Those are words that I could also use to show that it's the end of my story. But these 4 words right here are really going to help me put together structure to each one of the paragraphs that I'm going to write. In my first paragraph, the one that it talks about first, I'm just going to think of a quick little idea of what I want to write about first. And this is going to be my picture. I want to talk about when I went to Winona that I had to drive about 2.5 hours. And I want to talk about the drive. I'm going to write that down underneath this. I can't wait to tell you about the drive. I'm just going to draw like a little road to remember why I want to tell you about it. If you need to pause right now, you think about the first part of your story. I chose the drive to Winona because it was the first part of our story, and it was actually important. Now I'm going to move on to the word next. What did I do after I got there? Something important that I want to tell you about. I think I want to tell you about the hotel. And I'm going to think about something that I want you to know, because I think that was really important. That's the next thing that I remember about my story, is when we got there, the hotel was really fun. I'm going to draw a little hotel. Sorry, I'm not a very great drawer. And I know that in my next paragraph, I'm going to tell you about the hotel and why it was so fun for us. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to my after that. Something else that we did while we were there. I know. I want to tell you guys about how we got to climb this really cool trail that took us to this thing called Sugarloaf Bluff. So I want to tell you about that. And I think in this paragraph, I also want to tell you about how we got to go to lacrosse. So I'm going to put that in both of this paragraph right here. So I'm going to draw my picture, because this is what Sugarloaf Bluff kind of looks like, and you climb up. And we climbed up that. I'm just writing a couple words for each one. And then my finally one. And maybe I'm going to write about coming home. Because at the end of every vacation, we always have to come home, right? But I had a really great time. So I can't wait to tell you about that in this last paragraph. But what a good time we had on our little mini vacation to Winona. So when you come back to school, you're going to need to make sure that you have something like this drawn out, because we will be putting these into paragraphs. You'll be writing a paragraph about the first thing that happened, the next thing that happened, the after that, and the finally. We're going to be using Google Slides to help us write these. So make sure when you come back to school that you have this all ready to go. All right, talk to you later.